Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book on taxation. It's an important area of law for many of us. We sometimes get involved with it as counsel, as peripheral issues connected perhaps with other parts of a case. But this particular book that I'm looking at deals with what is known as Stamp Duty Land Tax, SDLT. The book I'm looking at is now in a 4th edition, and it's been written by John Feaster, and it's published by Claritax Books Limited, and Mr. Feaster is a solicitor at SCHOFIELD SWEENEY LLP. Let's have a look at the book first of all. It's a paperback. It's a Claritax book publication, as you can see. It's a nice light book, purple colour, spine, and then some detail on the back. Very much the house style of Claritax. Let me just show you the back of the book. They have a standard, quite detailed index, which is useful. They go for the structure of primary legislation, cases, and that sort of information at the back of the book, not at the front. So it's more of a European Union, sort of a European model as to where you find the cases and the statutes. The chapter numbers have got headings and paragraph numbering, which is very useful. There are quite a lot of subheadings. There are no footnotes in this book as such. That's the front cover there. Then that's a detail about Claritax Books itself. Then after that, in fact, that's a list of the books they've published, because they are specialist publishers on taxation matters for lawyers, if I can put it that way. Those are the details of the authors. And then there's a useful set of abbreviations, always important in property law. And you've also got then a very interesting foreword by Anne Fairpoe, which actually sets out what the new edition of the book's about. Then we go into the table of contents itself there. You can see how it's structured. And then there are in fact 14 chapters in total, ending with penalties. Then you've got the primary legislation, statutory instruments, table of cases, then the general index right at the back. And one thing that will be of relevance is the rates of stamp duty land tax as they stand today, because I'm recording this in May 2015, and of course we've had a general election. We will be having a budget in July, so there may well be further changes. There's an introduction from John Feaster which sets the tone of the book itself, and he talks about the changes that have taken place. Then he gives an overview about stamp duty, which I'll talk about in a minute. Then you get into the book itself. You can see it's a very easy to read book. That's one of the things I like. Oh, by the way, the total pages, 260 odd pages. It's an easy to read book, and one of the delights with Claritax books is that they are easy to read. You can find things quickly, and all the tediousness of some of the very detailed information on tax, which HMRC are frankly guilty of to a certain extent, and the government departments and various publications that are available on the market, make the subject more complex than it is. It's a difficult subject anyway, but I think Claritax brings clarity, and that's really what this is about. So, my wife Elizabeth and I have written a review. We gave the title of our review this heading: a substantially updated and revised 4th edition from Claritax on the complex rules governing SDLT. Now, for many people, stamp duty land tax, that's SDLT, which is what I'll abbreviate it to, is another disgraceful tax which should never have been levied in the first place. They would like to see it removed immediately by the new Conservative government, which will not happen, of course. Unfortunately, like all taxes, once they've been created, they're very difficult to reduce or abolish. And so it is with stamp duty, because of its convenience to the Treasury. However, we do have some very good books on this odious tax, and none is better in our view than the 4th edition of SDLT by John Feaster. Now, Feaster provides very practical information here, explaining the tax itself and by setting out the requirements for applications to the Stamp Office and similar compliance matters. That's in the body copy of the book. Whilst the paying public resent this tax, it's been with us in some form or another for over 300 years. In fact, in 1694. So it's definitely ready for the chop, but don't sharpen your axe yet a while. Alas, it continues to evolve, although many practitioners are grateful that they do not encounter it on a daily basis unless they cover real estate. But it's a very good idea to know which titles are the best on the legal market in this area, and Claritax publications certainly are the most fit for purpose statements on law and tax available to us in our view. So if you're a tax specialist as an accountant, tax accountant, or a lawyer advising on tax, you will probably be familiar already with the ever-growing stable of books on tax advice from Claritax, and SDLT is a favourite with us with regard to the range of the books that they cover. If you are not that familiar with Claritax, then what a discovery you've made, as we did when we came across this series of books a little while ago. In the words of the publishers, Claritax books complement what is on offer from the larger tax publishers, and that's absolutely right. Yes, if you mark our words, these books, including this one on SDLT, contain the most accessible and certainly businesslike advice on tax that you're likely to encounter. Claritax, I think, is rather a good name for these concise and very handy volumes, for they really do clarify in plain, precise language all the pertinent information you'll need to know across a range of highly specific areas of tax. Typically, says Claritax, our books cover niche topics in greater depth or take a more practical approach to particular tax issues, and in fact the practical approach comes out in this book. And so it is then with the latest Claritax title, Stamp Duty Land Tax, now, as I say, in a 4th edition written by an experienced solicitor, John Feaster from Schofield SWEENEY. Now, Feaster's objective is to provide a reference book for practitioners covering all aspects of SDLT, and this he does admirably in our view. It's an accessible guide on a complex topic. In addition, the guide to the enveloped property rules is very welcome, together with the information provided on the Scottish Land and Buildings Tax, a first step possibly in the breakup of the UK-wide land transaction tax. So it's very topical for May 2015. Whilst the resentment to the paying of this tax remains high among the public, the only saving grace is the cost-effectiveness of Feaster's practical and informative book. 1694 was a long time ago, and so were the Napoleonic Wars over 200 years ago, when that other little emergency tax came in on income. They're still with us, but we do have Feaster on SDLT as our best available short text explaining the stamp duty in a much simpler yet detailed manner, comparable with anything else we have seen in this tough tax area. Thank you very much. The law is stated as at the 7th of April 2015, but as I've indicated, do be aware that we have an emergency budget in July 2015. Here's the book again. It's a paperback, as I say. There we go, 260 odd pages. Just opening it in the middle, you can see there's a shared ownership schemes there. Again, as I say, you've got the paragraph numbering at the sides, very useful to find things. Useful use of bullet points is made, which I found quite helpful. You do have shaded areas too, which give you examples. So I think again that's useful both in explaining the position to a client and also for your own basic information. And let me just run through the table of contents again. You can see them there, the basics, and then we go into a lot of detail, reliefs and so forth. Then various points right in, including compliance, which is very important. And just to remind you at the back, there's a very detailed index. Well, thank you very much to all concerned. This is an excellent book and one that I'm sure you will find very comfortable to use in your practice. Thank you very much to all concerned. Bye-bye.